morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world's most exciting classroom. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are in week five of an epic sail across the Pacific Ocean from New Zealand to the Falklands through the 40s and the 50s. And those seas are have a reputation for being some of the roughest seas, high waves, cold conditions, wind, and it's been living up to it last week. I'm going to share my screen here, and I want to show you just where we are in the world. So you can see, if I move this map, there we go. You can see we started here in Christchurch. We made a little bit of zigzagging action as we kind of moved around different pressure systems, tried to find the most optimal wind. And then here we are. We are actually, the Oosterschelde is not that far from the Horn, from South America. Right now, if you match it up, if you go up, you can see they're matched up with the Eastern time zone right now, which means it's just after 9 o'clock here Eastern, and that's what time it is for them on the ship right now, which means that for the first time in weeks and weeks and weeks, we are going to have the ship live with us. So for the last couple of months, it has been recorded sessions because, being on the other side of the world, sometimes 16 hours ahead of us, we'd go live and it would be the middle of the night for them. So we had to have recordings from the previous day, but we'll have our first live connection with the ship in several months now that they've caught up to our time zone, which is really exciting. If we look at a few pictures here, remember you can always look at this map and play with this map at DARWIN200.com. And then if you click the camera symbol, you can see some of the pictures and videos that have been uploaded along the way. So if I back up here, you can see what I was talking about, where we started to get some more weather action. And I've got a little highlight reel, but I'm going to keep it until we connect with Tom. And he can talk a little bit about what the oceans have been like. But you can see big waves. You can see everyone's bundled up. You can see the water's coming over the side of the ship. Let's grab another one here. No, that one's loading kind of slow. Let me refresh the map. That seems to have froze the map clicking on that one. Let's see if we can get it back. There we go. And let's get our pictures back. There we go. Okay, so rough ocean, rough seas, and I think I broke the map. It won't seem to open for me. Let's try that one more time, and then we'll just move on. But you can always go here and explore DARWIN200.com. Click on the camera image, and it should bring up some stuff for you. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So you can see here things calm down a little bit. They're adjusting the sails. I'm sure there was lots of maintenance, maybe some ropes and things like that had to be dealt with after some of those big seas. But after the big seas, looks like they had a nice rainbow there that hopefully helped make it all worthwhile. There we go. So play around with that map if you want to. But once we connect with Tom, we'll talk a little bit more about those rough seas. He can talk a little bit more what it was like, how the passengers and the crew did during that passing. So what I want to share today is flying foxes. You may not know what flying foxes are here in North America or maybe Europe or the UK, but flying foxes are an amazing kind of bat. They're known as a megabat because they can grow quite large. Some of them can have wingspans of over a meter. And when the Oosterschelde was in Sydney, Australia, I was there with the ship. And I got to go around to all kinds of different places. Some of the conservation partners we worked with. I did some scuba diving. And I also spent a couple evenings in Centennial Park in Sydney. Centennial Park's a big park kind of in the middle of the city, a little bit away from the harbor. And it's the home to the largest colony of gray-headed flying foxes in Sydney. That sometimes can be over 40,000 gray-headed flying foxes. So you can imagine 40,000 bats that are the size of a small dog with wings over a meter. So pretty amazing. And unlike our bats here, they don't hunt insects. They're looking for pollen at night, nectar, and they're also looking for fruit. So you often hear them called fruit bats. They fly out at night. They spread across the city. Some of them can go over 60 kilometers in one night. They collect seeds. And then they disperse those seeds all over the place as they make their way back to their roosts during the day. So I met someone named Sandra Guy while I was there, and she's a volunteer with Sydney Wildlife. And she goes out and she looks for wildlife that has like the bats that have been orphaned. Maybe the mother didn't come back. Maybe the mother was injured. She takes in the young pups and then raises them, and then eventually they're released back into the wild. So I caught up with Sandra yesterday with one of her friends. Her name's Sue, and we got to learn a little bit more about how they rescue the bats, how they raise the bats, and then eventually release them. And then we got to meet Baxter. So I'm going to play this video now for you, and we're going to dive into this world of flying foxes and conservation of flying foxes. Hey, Sandra, how are you?
Hey, Joe, I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. It's really good to see you again, although I do kind of wish I was back in Sydney and we were out with the bats, though.
I kind of wish I was out doing your adventures. I think that sounds pretty amazing.
All right, very cool. Well, let's catch up a little bit. First of all, to students who may not have seen the earlier video, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Sandra Guy. I live in Sydney. I was born here, but I've done quite a bit of travelling. And I've always been passionate about the environment. And from a very, very young age, I was fascinated by bats. In Australia, we have a particular type of bat called a megabat or a flying fox. Sometimes it's called a fruit bat. And they're really massive bats, and they're not found all around the world. They're not found in North America or Northern Asia or even in Europe, where people there are used to occasionally seeing tiny little microbats that eat insects. And they're rarely larger than the size of an open hand when their wings are fully spread out. But our megabats, our fruit bats, where a big male will have a wingspan of 1 metre. That's almost a yard in imperial terms, and they're massive. And people who come to Australia who've never seen flying foxes before, they think they're pterodactyls. They think we've got dinosaurs flying around the skies in the city, and they're just awed, just amazed by what they're seeing. And even though I'm used to it, I'm still awed by them. I absolutely love them. As a tiny child, when I was being read the occasional fairy story, I didn't want to be the princess in the tower. I wanted to be the witch going out at night on the broomstick with the bats. I think that's the woman I wanted to be. And I've become a friend of flying foxes. So I suppose this is about the closest you get. A childhood dream.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's exactly how you and I met. You were out in the field. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what you were doing that night and what you do most nights during that time of the year?
Yeah, so we met during what we call pup season. So the female flying foxes, they can only have one pup a year, and that's usually in spring or summer, but the birth season is spreading into autumn a little bit now too. And during that period, initially the mum carries the pup on her belly. She doesn't have a pouch like our marsupial animals. And the little bat pup, it just holds on to the mum with its teeth and its thumb hooks and its 10 little sharp claws on its feet, on its toes. And it hangs onto her belly while she flies out at night. And when it gets too heavy for that, it would impede her flight and be dangerous for her, or would even just simply fall off. So from around 6 weeks of age, it stays home in the trees in the flying fox camp during the night while its mum goes out to forage for food. And if something happens to her, if she gets hit by a car or she gets trapped in backyard fruit tree netting or gets electrocuted on electricity wires, she can't come back to the camp. So there's an orphan there that will die if we don't find it and rescue it, and then we can hand raise them. And then when they start to fly, we can put them into a great big aviary. It's called a creche aviary, but it's a bit more like bat boarding school because they're teenagers by that stage. They build up their flight strength, and then we can release them out into the wild.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's get you to start the same way as Sandra, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Certainly. My name is Sue, and I came from the United States 49 years ago. And I joined this wildlife group 11 years ago, and originally did possums and a few birds, and then did one of the courses for working with flying foxes. And I realized that was my passion, because with the flying fox pups, it's very important for them to bond with their mother. And if a pup is orphaned and then we take it on and care for it, it considers us its mother. And that's very important for its emotional and social well-being. And even after saying that, they don't get imprinted the way certain animals do. We have a process by which we pass them on to other carers and decrease the amount of interaction, so that by the time we do release them, they're very happy with other bats and they don't really want to know us anymore.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I love the bats, and that's why I work with them, because I love the interaction and the love and support that goes both ways between the bats and us.
And they are just so clever. I'm a big fan of clever dogs. My mother grew up on a working sheep station, so I know how clever dogs are. But a flying fox will make even a clever dog look silly. They really are the most extraordinarily intelligent animals.
Yeah, awesome. And Sue, how's the season gone for you? How many bats have been in your care?
Well, I only raised 2 pups this year because I was away early in the season for a few weeks. But since I've returned, I've had about 16 in my aviary early on. Then they have graduated to a large flight aviary where they will get released from. And I have another intake of 7 coming on Saturday into my aviary. And those will be, they're starting to fly. They only eat fruit now. We don't have to give them formula or milk. And so what they do is they hang during the day and just have a peaceful time. And then at night, they're madly flying and interacting and fighting over the food buckets and enjoying themselves. But I still have 2 pups that are not quite flying yet. And one of them is on formula. So that's the one I'll bring out in a few minutes.
All right. Well, we're definitely looking forward to that. So you mentioned that the young one's on formula. What about the ones in the aviary? How do you feed them?
We chop up fruit and we give them mainly apple, plus pear, plus a few other fruits that they can digest. Well, digest the juices. Rock melon, watermelon, they're very, very popular. Grapes, they love grapes. But we don't give them certain fruits that they can't digest properly, which are mango and what's the other one, Sandra? Banana, yeah. Adults can, but not the pups. And we give them mainly apple because we don't want them to be spoiled by too much rich food, because when they're released, they will be having to find what they can out in the wild.
Yeah. So speaking of release, I'm really curious about that process. Are they brought back out to the colony in Centennial Park? How are they released?
No, we like to release ours outside of Sydney. So we have a release site on the Central Coast, which is about an hour away. Okay. And it's a woman who has a very large flight aviary. I don't know the size. Do you know, Sandra?
So I'd be guessing it's about 20, 30 meters long and about 15 meters wide.
Couple tennis court size. So anyway, that's enclosed. And what they do is they feed the bat pups, and they weigh and measure them once a week and make sure that they're gaining weight and doing well. And then as they reach a certain weight and strength, flying strength, then they hatch. It's like a little window. It's opened so that they're allowed to go out at night. And there is a flying fox colony nearby. So what will happen is they will go out and find a colony, and then come back if and when they want to. And that hatch is not closed until all of the bat pups have gone and not come back.
That's great. Well, Sue, what do you think? It would be great to meet the pup and see how you feed it.
Fantastic. I'll go get Baxter.
Perfect. Baxter. Awesome. And Sandra, I think you said you found Baxter.
It was the other bat, actually, Atticus, that Sue has, that I found in Centennial Park.
This is his bottle. He's now on 4 feeds a day, and he's drinking 13 mils of special bat milk.
So 13 mils, that's about just a little bit less than 3 standard teaspoonfuls. And when they're first born, they're about 60 or 70 grams in weight, the bat pups. And that's about, what is that? That's about 1/3 of a 1/4 of the weight of a cup of water.
Okay.
And we feed them 5 times a day with just 1 teaspoon of milk formula. And this milk formula is designed to replicate the mother's milk. So it's got all the right nutrition and all the right fats and that sort of thing. And can you see that? Am I aiming the camera properly? Can you see?
Yeah, that's perfect. I just made it nice and full screen as well.
Great.
We feed him hanging down because that's the way he would feed on his mother. They just naturally hang down. And if we were to hold him upright and feed him the way we feed babies, he would choke. So this is what works for bats. And he's very relaxed because he's just 1 foot up, if you can see. He's holding on with one, but the other one's tucked. So, oh, what's the matter? What's the matter? Here you go.
Oh, that's great. And what's the best estimate for Baxter's age?
He is 7.5 weeks old. So he's starting to flap. When he's hanging, he flaps his wings in preparation for flying, but that won't happen for another month or 2. He's starting to toilet, which means when he needs to go to the toilet, he uses his thumbs. I'll show you that later. And he swings them up and upends himself so that he doesn't soil himself.
Okay. And then I'm just looking at Baxter. I'm noticing those beautiful big eyes. And that's another thing that sets the flying foxes apart. They don't have the echolocation, but they've got great vision.
Yes. Better nighttime vision than daytime.
Yeah.
And because they don't use echolocation, it's their eyes, their ears, and their sense of smell that helps them navigate through the world and find their food. So if you're looking for flowers to eat nectar or fruit, you don't need any special skills like echolocation. All our native trees that need flying foxes to pollinate them, their flowers are white or cream, and they're held on the outside of the leaf canopy, and they act like a beacon to attract the flying foxes. So as the flying foxes are flying over at night, white and cream are the easiest colours to see at night in the dark. So it's the tree actually advertising to the flying foxes, come over to me, I've got plenty of food for you. And the flying fox then picks up the pollen as it's eating the nectar and then spreads the pollen. And that's what we call a symbiotic relationship. It's a mutually beneficial relationship that the trees and the bats benefit from. Because the pollen is being taken 10, 20, 30 kilometres each night, and that ensures that the next tree that's been pollinated from that flower and that pollen, that it's nowhere near the original parent tree, and there's a mixing of genetic material. So our native forests stay healthy, genetically robust, and that enables them to cope better with stresses as they occur.
Yeah, I think that's another amazing thing about bats is they provide those amazing ecosystem services like the pollination you mentioned. And then these guys would be dispersing seeds all over the areas they forage.
The seed dispersal and the pollination, it's just so essential because the trees that they provide that service for are our pioneer hardwood species. So the really big, strong trees that basically form the scaffolding of a native forest. So they're the first trees that can establish in an area where the things are pretty harsh. And then they establish and provide a windbreak and shade so that much more delicate plants can establish underneath in the microclimate that the big pioneer trees have established. And then that creates an environment that supports tens of thousands of other species. So these guys, these flying foxes, are just absolutely essential in the environment. We call a species that does a job that no other species does, we call it a keystone species. And we also call this one an umbrella species because it provides an ecological service that protects many, many other species, like an umbrella protects us from rain.
Yeah. How's Baxter doing over there?
Oh, look, he's finished his bottle, and I'm just cleaning up the milk that he managed to sneak under his wing to save a little bit for later.
I'll see
cleaning him up.
I'll see if I can catch Sue cleaning up Baxter. He snuffled his milk today, which is not what he normally does. So Sue's just hanging on to his wing very carefully, and in a way we've been trained so that we don't risk damaging his wing membrane or his delicate wing bones. And she's just cleaning him up a little bit, as any mum would do after we feed a toddler.
And pups love this. They get used to, this is what their mums would be doing. And I even toilet him, and he's doing a nice big wee for me.
All right.
So that's excellent.
And this here at the front of his wing, that's the equivalent of our thumb. And if you could hold his wing out,
If
Sue,
he'll let me,
if he lets me, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, so
stretch.
those are the wing bones that are equivalent of our fingers. From here to here that's his wrist, that's his elbow, and then that's his thumb, and then first finger, second finger, third finger, and little finger. So if we had fingers that were 2 meters long and they had wing membrane in between, we might have a chance of flight.
Well, he's holding a dummy because he's finished with his bottle, but rather than have him inhaling air, when he's finished, then I give him a dummy and he can happily suck on that, and it makes him feel secure.
Yeah.
And he'll probably fall asleep like this, and then I'll put him back on his air. And
okay. Just like most babies, when they get a little bit to eat, they're pretty tired afterwards.
That's right. They need a nap.
What's Baxter's next milestone? When will Baxter move into a bigger aviary?
Well, during the day he goes into my outside aviary, but he's not flying yet. So he hangs. I put him on his error, which is a clothes error, and it has towels stretched across it so he can lie down. But then when he wants to hang, he will hang and practice his flapping. And then when he gets tired, he goes back into the tea towels that are stretched on it and goes back to sleep.
And his next milestone our little hand raised bats, they tend to start flying at about 10 weeks old, and Baxter is 7.5. But their early flights are usually just 1 or 2 meters. As they see their stepmom passing through the room, they'll fly onto us because they still want to be with their mum all the time at that age. And then as they get to 14, 15, 16 weeks, as long as he's 350 grams, so about the weight of a cup and a half of water, at that weight, then he's a teenager and he can go into a very big flight aviary and actually be properly flying at night. So the equivalent age is roughly, for 1 week of a flying fox pup, it's equivalent to about 1 year in a child's life. So he's about 7.5 years old at the moment for a child. And that's why he still thinks his mum is absolutely fantastic.
All right. Very cool. Well, Sue, thank you so much for giving us a little peek at Baxter and Baxter's kind of feeding process. That's really cool. And Baxter looks so comfortable right now, just hanging on with one foot. And yeah.
He's very relaxed. Probably asleep down there.
Amazing. And Sandra, I can't thank you enough. It's yeah, that chance meeting in the park. I'm so glad that we've been able to. You sent some great content for us to make a few videos, and being able to do this for students as well is amazing.
It's been fabulous meeting you, Joe, and sharing my enthusiasm with flying foxes with you and being able to share it with your classroom. I just can't thank you enough. It's been fantastic.
So there we go. That was Sue and Sandra. A big shout out to Sue and Sandra for doing that for me yesterday. It was 6 o'clock for them. It was 2 o'clock in the morning for me. So I had to be up a little early in the morning to be able to get that. But I couldn't resist being able to connect like that. So that was pretty cool. And just as we're wrapping up that segment with the flying foxes, I see a feed from the Oosterschelde has just popped up backstage. So it looks like they're sorting the camera. I'll give them a second to do that. And then I'll bring them in. I think we're ready. Here we go. Hey, Tom. Hey, Mara.
Oh. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. How's it going?
Yeah, all good.
Good, thanks.
Smooth sailing today. Beautiful weather.
Lovely sunny.
Yeah, this is great to be able to do this live instead of having to pre-record. So Eastern time zone, you guys have covered a lot of ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Well, we must be about 4,000 miles in now, I think.
Yep, I think we've got about 1,400, 300 to go.
And it looks like the ship's still moving a little bit.
Yeah, it's running around a lot. We're going downwind now, so there's no support against the waves.
Yeah. So I know when we left off, you were expecting the next day for some interesting weather. You were going to get a little rolly, a little wet. The wind was going to kick up. So how was that?
Yeah, well, the interesting weather definitely came.
Yeah, was it, I mean, what was it like on board the ship? Was it hard to walk around? Were you able to be on deck?
Yeah, it was definitely very, very rolly. And we the deck got very wet as well. We had a lot of big waves crashing over. So that made walking on deck a little bit more hazardous, I guess. A lot of people got soaked. And yeah, some very big waves around.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look here. Tom, you sent me a little clip. I'm going to cue it up here quickly. And let's see what you guys were experiencing during that. So here we go. Okay, so that sound was a bit funny. It didn't download that way, but maybe it's just playing through StreamYard.
It didn't quite sound like that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the sound there, but it gives you some very good visuals. Tom, you've been on the boat many legs. Have you had seas like that before?
No, it's by far the roughest conditions we've had on any of the voyages. I think last time we were heading down to the Falklands, we had some pretty rough weather with some big waves, but nowhere near as much water was splashing onto deck.
Yeah. And then when it's that much wind, that much movement, you don't have to have very many sails up at all, do you?
Not at all.
No, we sailed through the entire storm with just the forestay sail up, which isn't very big And we also had a storm jib prepared, which we would have used in case the forestay sail had broken, but luckily it held throughout the storm.
All right. So luckily then, with just one sail up, there wasn't too much activity on the deck. You weren't adjusting sails as regularly.
That's the idea, yeah. To limit the amount of sail work, because anyone on deck with those weathers and put in a bit of danger. But we were still making like 7 or 8 knots, I think. Yeah. So even without the sail, we'd probably be still making good speed, but the sail's just there to maintain the ship on a good course, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, 5 weeks in, you guys are getting pretty close to South America when you look at the map. When what's the best estimate for when you guys think you'll round the Horn?
I think
in about a week.
Yeah, a week's time or so.
So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very close on the map now, but I think we're still quite a long way away from land, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's deceiving when you look at the map and see how much you've covered. It is still quite a ways to go. It looks small when you're looking at that map.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What has the crew mentioned anything? Is there a ceremony or anything while you're rounding, after you round the Horn? I know there's lots of sailor ceremonies for different things.
I think afterwards there will be. I think we're going to have our own little one when we round, but
not sure what that will entail yet.
No, I think it's a bit of a surprise.
Well, I know some sailors, when they round the Horn, they get a tattoo. So is that maybe something you guys will do in the Falklands?
Some of the guests are definitely thinking about that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we let you go, let's 2 more things I'd like to do. I want to get an update on some of the wildlife, and then we have a grade 4 or 5 class who might have some questions about life on the ship. So I'll bring them in just a second. But how's the week been for wildlife? I'm probably not many observations during the rough weather, but now that things have calmed down a bit, are you getting any birds, some marine life?
Yeah, we've some people actually saw some dolphins in the storm.
Yeah.
Did you see them?
Yeah, very cool. You'd have these big waves coming past, and these dolphins were just jumping out the face of the wave like it was nothing.
Having the best time. Yeah, and then we actually managed to keep the bird surveys going pretty much throughout the storm. I think we only missed one. So that was quite interesting as well, because obviously with the movement of the ship and then trying to spot the birds when they would just disappear behind these massive waves was quite tricky. But yeah, we haven't had anything new, I don't think, this week.
No, it's been quite quiet.
Yeah, we've had a lot of white-headed petrels. They've been sort of a constant over the last week and a bit. And then the odd albatross, a few storm petrels. Yeah, it has been a little bit quiet on the bird front.
Cool. All right. Well, we've got some grade 4 5s backstage, and I want to bring them in to say hi and see if they have any questions about life on the ship, the storms. Let's see what's on their mind.
Okay.
Hey, 4 5s. How you doing?
We're good. Okay. EVH. Loud. Is it scary? Way the ship moves? Is it scary?
Sometimes.
In the storm, it definitely was. The power of the waves is just incredible. You'd have these 7-meter waves just towering towards the ship, thinking, oh, that's just going to crash over deck. But then the ship just pops up, and then you're safely over.
Oh, that's cool. Caitlin. Loud.
How windy was it?
How windy was it?
It was very windy. So we had, I think, wind force 10, which is strong gale.
Yeah, it's about 50 knots of wind.
50 knots, yeah. So very, very windy.
Up to 89 kilometers an hour or something like that, I think. So very windy.
Okay.
Trinity.
Is it really bumpy?
Really? Is it really bumpy?
It was during the storm. At the moment, it's quite calm. It's a lovely sunny day. It's a little bit rolly today, but yeah, not so bumpy.
I bet when the waves get like that, you find out really quickly what people forgot to tie down on the ship.
Oh yeah, there was quite a few things flying around.
I think we had one dinner where just as soon as
Oh,
the
yeah.
plates got set, a big wave come and just knocked everything off the tables.
Yeah, you always got to be prepared for that.
Has anyone fell off?
Has anyone fell off?
Oh, I think our satellite might have froze for a second. We'll give them a second, see if they come back. But you have to remember, we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You saw on the map, but amazing the connectivity that we can still get with satellites, with our Starlink in the middle of the ocean. Usually, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to start moving again, or they're going to disappear, and that just means they have to reload and come back in. So hopefully we'll see them shortly. And then, oh, yeah, they're reloading. There we go.
Hello.
You're back. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we got you, Tom. We got you, Mara. We just had a question before it blinked on us. Actually, I'm forgetting what the question was. What was the
Has
question?
anyone fallen off?
Oh, no,
Luckily not.
No, it's not intended.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a safety briefing, and you guys talked about what to do in those kind of
I
situations.
think the Wi-Fi is just cutting out a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, let me know if you can hear me. Okay, Tom.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think we just had a bit of connection issue.
Okay, perfect. Let's get another question in before the Wi-Fi goes.
Oh, oh, they wanted to know if you had fun in the storm.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a type 2 fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a new experience. Very exciting.
Kind of like
Scary.
a wild, wet and ride roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Beller, has anyone gotten hurt?
I don't think so.
Not badly. There's the odd trip and fall here and there, as to be expected when the ship catches you off guard and you just slip over, but nothing too serious.
Actually, one of the guests fell out of his bunk during the storm. So he was sleeping on the top bunk, and we have these bits of canvas that are meant to keep you in, but it broke. It ripped. The wave was that strong. There was such a strong bump, so he fell out of his bunk. But luckily, he didn't hurt himself too much. He has a bit of a bruise now, but he's okay.
Wow.
Jacob?
Do you know how much water there was on the boat when it came on?
So he wants to know if he knew how much water came on the boat during the storm.
A lot.
Quite a lot.
So at where the actual wheel is about 3 meters off the deck. So we were getting waves coming over, 3 meters onto deck, filling the entire ship up with water. So
Yeah, people up to their knees in water. So yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Let's get one or two more questions from our crew.
Okay, we'll do two more.
All right.
Okay. Spit it in. Okay, Effie? Have you seen any sharks?
No, we haven't. We've seen a lot of whales and some dolphins. And we actually saw a mola, which is an ocean sunfish, and it looks a little bit like a shark. When we first saw it, they have these big fins sticking out of the water. When we first saw it, we thought it was a shark, but it turned out to be a fish, sunfish.
Cool. If you guys don't know what that is, mola, look it up after. They're really cool looking. Weird looking.
All right. And last one, Madison.
Did any of you get seasick?
Oh, did any of you get seasick?
Not during the storm, actually. A lot of people got seasick when we first got on the boat 5 weeks ago, the first few days. A lot of people weren't feeling so well, but I think everyone's over it now.
yeah, it usually takes a week or so just to get over that initial seasickness, but once you're there, then it's much more comfortable on board.
All right. Excellent. Well, 4-5s, those were some awesome questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And of course, thanks to Tom and Mara for that lightning round of storm questions. Very cool. Okay. Well, Tom, Mara, oops. That's the one I want. There we go. Before I let you go, we need our look around. We need to absorb the sea. Can we see the ship? Can we see the ocean? All right, a few sails up today. Perfect. Well, we have we have another week to go to our next event, and maybe by then you'll have rounded the horn or be pretty close. That's really exciting. And Marv, the question for you before we wrap up is, you kind of got pulled into this last minute. Everything you were expecting?
Yeah, I guess so. I think I've been waiting for something like this storm to happen, because I think when I realized I was going to sail across the Pacific, that's sort of what I was picturing. So yeah, it's been really amazing to experience something like that firsthand. Definitely feels like we're in the furious 50s now.
Awesome. Well, I've got one more question. It just came in via YouTube from Miles in the UK. And Miles wants to know the sail that you had up during the storm. Roughly how big was that one?
The sail, sorry?
Yeah, the sail. How big was the one that was up in the storm? Is it up right now?
It's not up right now, but I would say probably like maybe a third of a tennis court, probably.
Yeah.
Something like that. Maybe a bit smaller.
Okay, about a third of a tennis court. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, that in comparison to the size of the ship, that is very small.
Yeah.
I'd say the biggest sail we've got is like, the total area is over the size of a tennis court. So much bigger.
Yeah, great. Well, we look forward to catching up next week. Is there anything on the horizon? Any weather updates? Is there something coming up, or does it look like it might be smooth for a little while?
I think it's pretty smooth.
It's quite smooth for a few more days, and then I think we might have a little bit more wind coming in again just as we get to the Horn, but it's still a week away, so the forecast just keeps changing. So we'll see when we get there.
Okay, awesome. Well, it's great to have you in the same time zone for a little bit. Thanks so much. I know it's a little bit early. I know, Mara, you were on the late watch. So thanks so much for being with us. And yeah, this is our first live connection in several months. So it's great to have you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Joe.
All right. Awesome. Stay safe out there. Have fun.
See you later.
Bye.
See ya. Okay, cool. Awesome. That's our first live connection since when we had the last one, maybe in the Galapagos, Galapagos, a little bit in Tahiti. Then they would have crossed the international date line, and then it would have been way too hard to have those live connections because basically they're just too far into the future. But now the ship has hit another milestone. It's back in the Eastern time zone, and pretty soon we'll be in the Falklands, and I'm hoping we can get something pretty special when we're in the Falklands. So 2 more things to do before we wrap up today. One is a new experiment. And the second will be to take a look at last week's curiosity answer, and then take a look at a brand new curiosity of the week for this week. So I'm going to switch cameras here, and I also have the supplies for the experiment behind me. So I'm going to grab those supplies. Remember, all of these experiments are experiments that you can do in the classroom. You can try at home. And then if you send in pictures trying the experiment, your class will have a chance at a prize. So I'm going to switch to a different camera now, and we'll talk about the experiment we're going to try. Remember, there's an experiment for this from last week, which was the ocean acidification using shells in water and vinegar. So you still have until next Thursday to send us in an answer with some pictures for your chance at a prize. And then you'll have 2 weeks for this new experiment as well. I'm going to turn on a new camera here, and then we will get started. And there we go. It's on. And let's bring it in. Perfect. All right. We'll keep me in the screen as well, but maybe I can make this camera a little bit bigger. Let's see. Oops, I want the other one. Let me switch them. Ha, perfect. Okay, so very easy supplies this time around. You need an egg or 2. You could use 1 and it would still work for this experiment, but 2 might make it a little bit easier. So 1 to 2 eggs. 2 I think is best, but one could work as well. And then you're going to need some vinegar. So I've got this huge thing of white vinegar here that I took from my kitchen. So just regular pure white vinegar, easy to get at the grocery store. I bet most of you might have that maybe in the staff room kitchen, or you might have it at home as well. And so what you're going to do is put, whether you're using 1 or 2 eggs, you're going to put them in some vinegar. And these eggs are going to sit in that vinegar for 24 hours. And you're going to see a big change in these eggs as the shell on the eggs dissolves. But the membrane is still going to hold the egg together. After 24 hours, you can take the egg out and wash it, clear any extra shell, and then you're going to leave it in for another 24 hours in the vinegar before you take them out. So that's the first step, is to get the shell dissolved from these eggs. And what's really cool is that they're still going to hold together quite nicely, even without the shell. The next stage will be to take 2 containers of water that can fit the egg. Mine might be a little bit small, but I'm working in my office, so I didn't want to have too much water around my computer stuff. And you're going to put the eggs, 1 into just the plain water after the shell has dissolved, and you're going to leave it in there. And the second water, you're going to put sugar in. So you're going to stir sugar into it until the sugar stops dissolving, so that it's just filled right up with sugar. You want a nice good amount of sugar in the water, mixed in so it dissolves. And then you're going to put the second egg into that one, the water. Then you're going to leave them for a while. You can leave them for the day and see if there's been a change. You can leave them overnight and then take a look. And then, so that's our experiment. I don't want to tell you what's going to happen because I want you to see what happens in your classroom or at home. And so it would be great if some classrooms gave this a try this week, sent us in a picture or a video clip. And what did your eggs look like? What did your eggs look like? The one that was in the plain water, what happened to it? And what happened to the one that was in the sugar solution? So in the sugar water. If you're only going to use 1 egg, that's fine. You can put it into the water first and see what happens over a period of time. And then later switch it and put it into the sugar one and see if it changes and what happens over time. So it's up to you if you want to use 1 or 2 eggs. So we want to see what happens. What happened to the first egg? What happened to the second egg? And then I would love to know what you think, what process do you think happened to make the change that you see in the 2 eggs, whether it's in the water or it's in the sugar water after the egg has lost its shell. So step 1, dissolve the shells in vinegar. Should take 24 hours. You can wash it and clean the shell off, then put it in again for another 24 hours in the vinegar. Then it's ready after you've washed it again to go into a water and then a sugar water solution and see what happens to your eggs. So there we go. Easy supplies you should be able to find without too much difficulty. And then you can give this a try in the classroom or try it at home. Send us a picture or send us a video clip to classroom@darwin200.com. I'll put that up there as well. Classroom@darwin200.com. And then we'll pick 2 or 3 classrooms to send a gift card to. Okay, there we go. Let me carefully move this water out of the way. And let's switch cameras. I want to come back now. There we go. And this can come down. So we had a curiosity last week, and I happen to have that curiosity sitting right here with me. Here it is. Let's get that back up on the screen. I gave you a little hint that it wasn't a piece of wood because I know it kind of looks like one, and I thought that would be a guess that would come in quite often. So the correct answer for this is it is a piece of sandstone. So this is a piece of sandstone, and this piece of sandstone is 120 million years old, this piece of sandstone. And it came from Utah. So in the United States is where this came from. It wouldn't have looked like this originally. It was obviously cut into this rectangle piece. It didn't come out of the ground as a rectangle, but this pattern on it is natural, which is really cool. When you look at this, say maybe a mineral store or something, they all have different patterns They look really cool. They're all unique and very interesting looking. And the reason they get these really cool patterns is because of the type of rock it is and how it was laid down in the environment. So this is a sedimentary rock. So it formed over a long period of time of sediment settling in something like a riverbed or an ancient seabed. And these sediments, these particles of sand, would settle to the bottom over time and stack up on each other. It would be compressed in different ways, and then eventually compressed so much that it forms this type of sedimentary rock. So that's why we see these really cool patterns. It's the way the sediment lays down on the bottom of the riverbed or the seabed. There's different size particles. It's made up of different types of sand and particles. So you can see sometimes fossil imprints in these as well. You can see the banding, you can see the ripples that it forms, and it all has to do with the way that the material settles on the bottom of the riverbed and the seabed where they can be found. So a shout out to a classroom in the UK. Miss Roll's crew in Kent had the right answer. They sent in sandstone as the correct answer. So we have a prize for them, and a shout out to our classrooms who sent in answers as well. We had several really good guesses, but only one classroom came through with it being a piece of sandstone. So to wrap up for today, we have a new curiosity. I think some of you may have seen this before, so it might be easy one out there. A little search online might help as well, but I'll give you a little clue that it is a fossil. But I want you to identify what this fossil is and maybe why it looks the way it does. So here it is. I have it here in my hand. Let me try and get it in front of the camera a little bit better. There we go. You can see a little cross section of it. And then what's really, really cool is if I open this fossil up, all right, we can see inside. It's very shiny. It's very smooth, maybe a little crystally. So I want you to think about what kind of fossil this is and maybe why it looks the way it does. Most fossils you see are kind of more rocky, maybe. This one, when you open it up, is very smooth and crystally inside. So there we go. That's our curiosity of the week. Let me fit it back together. You can find these much larger in stores. You can find them in a lot better shape. The better they look, the bigger they are, the more expensive they are, but they're really, really cool. So there we go. That is our curiosity of the week. You have 1 week to send in your best guesses to classroom at DARWIN200.com. We'll put that up one more time, classroom at DARWIN200.com. We have come to the end of our 70th World's Most Exciting Classroom since the Oosterschelde has left Plymouth in the UK, crossed the Atlantic, made a navigation around South America. We hit the Galapagos, we crossed the Pacific through the islands to New Zealand and Australia, and now the ship is within 1,000 miles of rounding the Cape, which is pretty amazing. Cape Horn. It's a pretty big deal. It is rough waters. Not a lot of sailors have made it around, especially back, in the days when the ships were made of wood, and we were just learning to navigate. A lot of ships were lost going around the Horn. So it is a dangerous part of the ocean. So I couldn't imagine doing it without the technology that we have today. Okay, there we go. The last thing we have to do today is a shout out to our sponsors, our supporters, our partners, without whom we wouldn't be sailing around the world, doing this right now with classrooms. We wouldn't have our researcher on board like Mara, and we wouldn't be have our young Darwin leaders join us in every port to learn new conservation skills for their future careers. So very important. We'll have that shout out to our sponsors. And a shout out to our classrooms for tuning in today, who are going to tune in throughout the week to the recording. Always great to have you with us. And we can't wait to have you next week and find out what it was like when the ship rounded the Horn. So thanks, everyone. We're going to sign off for now.